Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So I thought I would do a little sit down video for you guys, as I've been wanting to do this video for quite a long time, but now I'm quite far into my journey. I thought this would be the right time. So today's video is my 10 tips for breastfeeding, whether you're just starting, you're partway through your journey, you're a new mum and you're apprehensive about breastfeeding and it's something that you really want to learn a little bit more about, or it's something that you just want to watch because you might want to know about it in the future. But yeah, so just a little background. My name is Molly. If you're new to my channel, then I'm a first-time mum to a baby boy called Jasper. I say he's a baby. He's now 15 months old. So I am 15 months into my breastfeeding journey. And it wasn't the easiest start for me. I think I was quite naive, and actually, I'm not sure if there's that much information in regards of actually how hard breastfeeding can be and how it is the most natural thing for your body to do, but that's once you know what you're doing. It's kind of like riding a bike. Once you know what you're doing, you've got it, but learning how to do that is really quite difficult. So yeah, I ended up going back into hospital 3 days after having Jasper to basically drain my boobs because I had such an oversupply. I ended up having mastitis, I had cracked nipples, I had sore nipples, I had bleeding, I had aversions, I had anxiety, I was fearful to feed him. And then fast forward a few weeks, things got a lot easier for me, and fast forward 15 months, we're still here. So yeah, so without further ado, I'm just going to crack straight into it. What I will do when I talk about my 10 tips, I will also just go into why I think they are beneficial and how they worked for me and why I think they will work for you. But yeah, if this is something you're interested in, then please. So my first tip / bit of advice is, it isn't the most natural thing ever. Your body is alien to this, so it takes work. But once you've got this, it is the most beautiful thing ever. So as I said briefly, it takes a lot of work. Obviously, being a first-time mum, your boobs have never done this before. They've never filled up with milk ready to feed your child or children. So that's quite hard in itself. Your body's kind of adjusting to that, let alone then trying to teach your newborn baby how to latch correctly and drain your boobs correctly so that it prevents blockages to then prevent things like mastitis and nasty painful infections. So if you are like a few days in or a week or so in and it's still not feeling right, I promise you it gets easier, and it's completely natural for your body to be a little bit like, hold up, what is going on? Because it happened to me, it happens to everybody. Just remember, like, when you have your baby and you're planning to breastfeed, if you still feel quite uneasy and unsure about it, just ask your midwife, stay in hospital for that extra day to make sure that you are fully able to know what you're doing, because it is terrifying, but I promise you it gets easier. Like, your body is the most incredible thing, your boobs are the most incredible thing, and your baby will guide your boobs into knowing what they want to do, and your milk supply, like, it will gradually just plateau and everything will start to form a routine. And just stick with it, do not give up. I know it's painful and I know it's sore and I know it's like agony and lonely, but I promise you, promise, it will get easier. Tip number 2 is persevere. This is kind of going into tip number 1. For me, it probably took around 6 to 8 weeks, which I know sounds like a long time. And during those days, it is a long time. But once you get to it, it's like unbelievably amazing. But the more you persevere, the more your body adapts, your baby adapts. Like I said, the routine forms and the pain does go. A lot of the pain I had was mainly from being engorged and just my boobs being too full of milk, and just like that initial latch on was really painful. But once he was feeding, he was fine. And once the boobs had been drained, they were fine. But my biggest tip is, please buy nipple cream and please apply that before every feed, in between feeds. I had the latch. I'll post a picture of the one that I used, and it was brilliant because it was safe to baby. Like, you wouldn't have to like take it off before feeding baby or anything like that. Like, I just keep going with it. It is a lifesaver. Nipple cream is the best thing in the world, and I promise you it will help persevere through those rough, sore nipples and boobs days, I promise. Tip number 3 is do not be afraid to ask for help and do not be embarrassed to ask for help. This isn't just asking like your midwives or your health visitors. Please do ask them. Like in the very beginning, like the reason I had to go back into hospital was because I thought that I had it down, and I left and then actually had a complete breakdown and cried a lot, which you cry a lot anyway, but I had a real emotional battle with myself, and I thought my body was rejecting me when really I just was doing something I'd never done before. I needed a bit of extra help. So midwives and health visitors were incredible. They would sit with me and teach me to make sure he was being latched on properly, making sure positions were working properly. But not only ask them, I found like looking for a Facebook group was amazing. I'm a part of a local Facebook group to where I live, and there's always tons of advice, tons of like people on there giving tips and tricks. And also if you're just feeling a little bit anxious or a little bit worried about what you're doing, you can post on there, and the amount of people who respond is the most incredible community. The same goes for Instagram. I find like now, even now at 15 months, I love following breastfeeding journeys on Instagram, whether that's just an ordinary mum, a doctor, a nurse, someone who specialises in breastfeeding, a consultant, Sandra down the road, whoever. I just find you don't feel so alone when somebody else is doing that with you. And again, you can just go for advice and tips. So you just never feel alone. Another one, again, another social media platform is YouTube. I followed and watched loads of videos on breastfeeding tips and tricks, which is why I'm also wanting to produce one here. Emily Norris was an incredible one. She does loads of breastfeeding tips and tricks videos and makes you feel at ease. And there's just loads of people on there that you can, so even just videos, if you type in breastfeeding positions, should this hurt, should this not, like there's an answer for everything on YouTube. It's an incredible community. Also ask your partner to help. Like for me, it wasn't necessarily helping with feeding, but it was more just helping in regards of company. So in the very early days when Jasper was a newborn, and obviously every time they fed they went to the toilet, like even during the night Dan would still get up with me while I fed, and he would do the nappy changes and help settle him back to sleep. So I would literally feed and be able to go back to sleep, and then Dan would do his part. So get them involved. Like they moan about not being able to do the feeds, get them to do a different job. And also you just don't feel so alone during those times, and if it's a bit painful, you've got someone to lean on. And lastly, friends that have already been through it. There's nothing better than hearing it from the horse's mouth and just keeping it real. Like there are going to be some real tough times when it's painful. You might get mastitis, your baby's teething. Teeth are just a different story altogether. But like there's always going to be a moment where you think you've got it down and then something might crop up. So just don't be afraid to ask people who've been through it. Like being a breastfeeding mum myself, there's nothing more I love to talk about than breastfeeding. As sad as that sounds, I'm so proud of the journey and everything that comes with it that I'm just, getting a bit emotional. Get a grip. Sorry, it's just the most incredible journey. And to be able to talk to people about it makes me feel really proud. So I'm sure that anybody that you know who is breastfeeding or already done it would be absolutely above and beyond happy to discuss it with you and make sure you're not alone and you're doing the right thing. One of my closest friends was my absolute saving grace, and she was the reason I started breastfeeding because I loved her journey, and she was the reason I continued through the dark times because she just ensured me that this is normal and everything's okay and it gets easier. And she was right. The fourth tip is please keep up with the snacks and keep up with the water. Like you would not understand how hungry you get. I think breastfeeding burns about 500 calories a day, depending on how often you feed, which is crazy. So every time, to be honest, in the early days, like I spent a lot of my time sat on the sofa with Jasper sleeping on me. So Dan, my partner, ensured that I always had at least a glass or a bottle of water next to me, and I always carried snacks, whether that was breakfast bars, crisps, chocolate, biscuits. But my biggest tip is oats. Like if you like oats, please, like they are so good for your milk supply. Having porridge in the morning is amazing. It just helps keep your milk supply up, and it's so filling and nutritious and brilliant for baby also. But if you're not so keen on porridge, flapjacks are a really good idea. You can make like homemade flapjacks, and I don't know what it is, but they just really help keep you fuller for longer and help with your milk supply. But just don't go hungry. Your baby's draining a lot of calories from you, and you need to make sure you're looking after you as well. So yeah, just keep hydrated and keep up with the snacks. Tip number 5 is don't be afraid to express. I remember when I first started breastfeeding, there's this massive like thing about expressing. Like if you express too much, then it will mess your supply up. Your boobs will be out of routine because they're feeding more than what your baby needs to be fed, and it can cause engorgement. And don't get me wrong, things like that can happen. But for me, I had such an oversupply of milk that I needed to express a little bit just for comfort. So you could either buy an electric pump, a hand pump, or I actually have a Nature Bond silicone pump, which I will flash up a picture of here, which if you pop it onto the other boob that you are feeding on, it will collect your letdown, because letdown is, I'll go on to another tip with that, but your letdown is quite a lot in the early days and in the early few months. So that would just collect, so nothing goes to waste, because I mean, breast milk is like gold dust. Do not let that stuff go to waste. And also for Dan and I, we knew that I was going to have to go back to work a lot earlier than what a normal maternity leave would be. So we needed to ensure that Jasper was used to taking at least 1 bottle for when I wasn't going to be around. So in the early days, I would express during the night when I was at my fullest, because your body actually produces more milk at night time. So I would wake up, when Jasper would wake up around 1 or 2, Dan would take him down to give him a feed, but I would then express in bed while they were doing that, and then I would go back to sleep and get some much needed rest. So just don't be afraid to do it. Don't overdo it to mess your supply up completely, but build up that milk supply in your freezer ready for when they start weaning onto foods, because that milk is perfect to start with their purees and their porridge and stuff like that. But also just to give yourself a little rest sometimes, because mum, you are number 1 important as well as baby, and you need that rest to ensure you are giving the best care to your baby. And just educate yourself a little bit on it. There's loads of advice again, but if you're really uncomfortable, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of expressing. And again, to get baby used to a bottle, because we stopped giving Jasper a bottle and it was a nightmare trying to get him back used to it again. So if that's definitely something that you're thinking of introducing, then go for it. It just means you can look after yourself a little bit more. And on the other side of it, it means Dad can get a little bit involved. Dan was brilliant. He didn't mind the fact that I was feeding, but sometimes it just gave him a sense of purpose when he knew that I needed the rest. He felt very, very honoured to be able to sit and feed Jasper as well. So yeah, don't be afraid of it. It helps massively. Tip number 6 is nipple pads. Please stock up on nipple pads. I think, oh God, for a good 6 months, I think I was wearing nipple pads, because every time Jasper fed, my other boob would leak milk. Like your letdown would happen and you would leak. So yeah, do not forget about the nipple pads. Always have them in. I used to buy the disposable ones, the ones that you would just throw away after one use. And then I bought on Amazon the reusable ones. So they're like cotton, like a bit like towel material, but they were super comfortable. I'm not sure what they would have been like in the beginning when I had cut nipples and sore nipples, but towards the end, like towards the ender part when I had to wear them, they were absolutely brilliant. And then you would literally just throw them in the washing machine at the end of the day, change them a few times a day, wash them, dry them, and then they were good to go for the following days. So yes, do not forget nipple pads. They are the most important. Tip number 7 is the hairband trick. So I haven't actually got a hairband on, which is really strange. The reason newborn babies feed so often is because they have really small tummies, because but therefore they get full up really quick. So that's why they feed so often. So in the early days, he would feed from one boob, fall asleep, and then on the next feed, I would feed him on the other boob. But when you're delirious and tired, it's really easy to forget what boob you fed him on, especially at that point when your boobs are still quite full. So it's not like you can tell if one's fuller than the other. So I would always wear a hairband on my wrist, and then whatever boob was the next boob to feed on, that is the wrist I would put the hairband on. So if I fed him on the left side, I would then move the hairband to the right hand side, just so I knew what boob he needed to be feeding on, because no one wants to feed twice from the same boob and then have a massive engorged boob. And then after a while, like your baby will work around you. Some babies prefer one boob, some babies want both. Like, it is what it is. But I would always, after a while, try and feed Jasper on both sides. Even if he would like fall asleep, I would try and pop him onto the other boob to make sure, number 1, he was fully fed, and number 2, that both of my boobs were being empty. So it was a lot more comfortable for me. It's not always going to work. Like when they're that small, like I said, they only have small tummies. But as they get bigger, I would just recommend feeding from both sides during one feed to make sure that you are the most comfortable you can be, and they are the fullest they can be. Tip number 8 is believe in yourself. Like, I know it seems a bit cliche to say that, like, oh, just, you know, it's quite easy, but trust me, 15 months in, I would not ever have even thought I would have got to 3 months, let alone 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and now I'm at 15 months. Like, you have to really believe in yourself and trust your body. Your body grew this human being, it nurtured this human being, it birthed this human being, now it's feeding this human being. Your body knows what it's doing, and it's actually mind-blowing how your milk changes and adjusts to your baby's needs. So obviously they go from feeding like every couple of hours, then it can go to every 3 hours, then every 4, and so on. And just go with the flow. Like, go with the flow of your body. If your baby's really hungry and wants to feed all the time, just let them feed. Like, enjoy it. Sit on that sofa, enjoy those moments, soak them in, because they are gone so quickly. Enjoy those cuddles. If your baby goes longer, brilliant. But just believe in your body and trust what it's doing. Like, it may seem like cluster feeding is like the worst, and cluster feeding for me was one of the most mentally hardest things, because I just could not get over how much he wanted to feed, and I felt like my body was an actual milk machine, pumping and working all the time. But it's because babies go through growth spurts quite often, and then your boobs fill up ready for the next stage. Your boobs basically adjust ready for the next stage for your baby. So believe in that, and don't let anybody tell you about your own journey, whether that's how long you're feeding for, how short you fed for, how often they feed, if you're still feeding through the night, if you're still feeding on demand. Like, it's your journey, and trust that. I promise you, no one knows your body and your baby better than yourself. So just shove a middle finger up to them all, and you do you. Tip number 9 is about discipline. So this one is more about teeth and teething. Luckily for me, Jasper now has like 6 teeth, which I don't think is that much for 15 months. But when he first started getting them, I thought that was going to be the end of my breastfeeding journey. I was like so nervous that he was going to bite me. But he really doesn't. Like, they really don't. They, at the end of the day, they enjoy their milk and they enjoy that comfort, so they shouldn't hurt you in need to do that. But if they do, my best advice is to discipline and to completely take them off the boob, take them away, and make them understand that they are not allowed to hurt you during their feeds. This is a nice moment, this is comfort, this isn't to be hurt. So you just have to be a little bit cruel to be kind. And also, just to warn you all, when the teeth first start coming through, not so much the bottom ones because the tongue is over, but on the top teeth, they're so sharp where they haven't been worn down by food yet. So they can be a little bit like razors, and they can just graze across your nipple. This isn't biting, this is just the way the mouth is on the boob. So just make sure the latch again is correct, even if you're like 6, 9, 10 months in. Like, just make sure that latch is correct and just get through it. I promise you it gets easier. And just go back to the nipple cream again, lather on some of that nipple cream. But I do think discipline is really important to get some proper manners when it comes to breastfeeding with teeth. But also, do not let it put you off, because it gets so much better. Like, teeth to me are no different now than when he was feeding gummy. Like, just don't let it put you off. Sorry, this part of the clip is actually filmed a little bit later. Let me just adjust. Mum life and all that, baby calls. And also, if you can hear my guinea pig banging in the background, it's tea time. So that's him. But I just wanted to finish up with my number 10 tip for breastfeeding, and that is to enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Once you get past the bit of difficult stage, I promise you it's the most enjoyable thing I have ever done, and I am so grateful. My journey has become a really positive experience for me. And now to think at 15 months, like, the end is near, it makes me really, really sad. And I just want to assure you that those dark, long, lonely days and those long nights where you feel like you're constantly awake will get easier, and they will pass. I remember someone once said to me, "This soon shall pass, everything is a phase," and they hit the nail on the head. It is so true. Sooner or later, your baby will find its routine. Your body will find its routine. You as a collective will find your routine, and it will just become the most natural instinct for you to do. And when I tell you that breastfeeding cures everything, I ain't lying. Like, a bumped head, breastfeeding. A bit anxious, breastfeed. tired, breastfeed, hungry, breastfeed, needing a bit of comfort, breastfeed, thirsty, breastfeed, like it cures everything, jabs, breastfeed. And I just feel incredibly lucky that I'm still doing it 15 months later. I don't have any intentions to stop at the moment. I'm very much just going with Jasper's flow. And actually, I think you become more attached than baby does. But yeah, I just wanted to share these 10 tips that if I kind of knew a little bit more about before I started my journey, I feel like it would have maybe made life a little bit easier for me, just to know that I wasn't the only one having dark days. So like I said, guys, just enjoy it, embrace it, enjoy those cuddles and those little moments, and just savor them, because you really don't know how long it's going to go on for, and they're so precious. And until you've done it, you can't even explain it. Like, the love I have is unbelievable. The way I now admire women, not only who give birth and are pregnant, but who also breastfeed. Like, it's a journey. It's one hell of a journey, and I admire everyone and congratulate everyone for doing so. So I hope these top 10 tips can help at least one person. So if they do, please, in the comments below my description box. And also, if you have any tips for yourself, please share them in the comments below to help other mums like us. This is what my channel is all about. I want to be a part of a community where we just help one another. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I really do appreciate it. If you like this video, smash that thumbs up for me. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you're not already. It's completely free. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.